Hey friend, welcome to Healthy by Heather Brown. Do terms like mental health, intermittent fasting, and buzzy wellness words make you feel overwhelmed? If you don't know where to start with loving the life you already have and letting your good things grow until they become daily habits, I got you, mama. So join me as we unpack what it looks like to live a life well loved and redefine a new approach to health from the inside out. Think of this space as your girlfriend's group text with the occasional dad joke and point of view from my Yankee hubby, Eric. We promise to give you key takeaways that you can implement right away to pursue health in your mind, body, and soul because God made us that way. Don't stress. Let's hop on this Hot Mess Express together. Today, we're thrilled to have Ellen Yin on the show, CEO, marketing guru, podcaster, and educator. To date, Ellen has mentored over 10,000 students through her online programs, and you can catch her every Monday on the Cubicle to CEO podcast. I have listened to her episode with Maddie James, and it's A++, so make sure you tune in. I love the way she works to maintain a healthy, mindful balance with her work life and home life. She is also a super connector and has spoken on stages about the power of networking and the human-forward approach to business, which I obviously love as a believer. I just think that that's something so key. So with all that said, without further ado, Ellen, welcome to the show.
Hello, Heather. Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. So she was just telling me that she is engaged, right?
Yes, getting married this August. Super exciting. Yes.
So excited for you. So first of all, could you just walk us through your journey from Cubicle to CEO and then maybe tell us a little bit about how you've interwoven that with also your personal life, kind of how you're finding that balance?
Absolutely. Well, my journey from Cubicle to CEO, which as you probably inferred, is the inspiration for the name of our podcast and our brand at large, really started with sort of by accident, I would say. I was 23 at the time, and I was working a corporate marketing job that just did not align well with, what I wanted in a career. It was very limiting in terms of creativity. And so I quit my job without a backup plan at the end of 2017, a couple days before Christmas. I remember that clearly. And I didn't have anything else lined up at the time. So, unlike what most people assume, I did not quit my job to start a business. I just knew that that role wasn't it for me. And I was hoping to find a better fit somewhere else at a different company. But what ended up happening is during that job search process, I actually reconnected with a coworker of mine who, in addition to his full-time job at the company that we both worked at previously, he also owned these local coffee stands with his wife as a family business. And he knew that I was good at social media marketing. And so they became my first freelance client, essentially. And that project, that $300 project, launched my whole entrepreneurship journey because it opened my eyes to this possibility that I had a skill set, marketing, that I could monetize outside of a traditional job structure. So that was 5 years ago at the beginning of 2018. And a lot has changed since then. I no longer work as a marketer or a done for you marketing service outside of what I do in my own business. But
Sure.
Our business has gone through quite a few evolutions, and now we are a media platform telling the stories of underrepresented women in business. And so we tell the stories of self-funded 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses through a financially transparent lens. And our whole tagline is, we ask successful entrepreneurs the business questions you can't Google.
Yes, I love that. So for someone that's listening to this and they're like, okay, so you run a medium platform, but a lot of the women that listen to this podcast actually are either stay-at-home moms, or they run a side hustle, or they, one day wanted to get into podcasting or blogging or maybe being an influencer, all these different things. And they're like, okay, so how do you make money? Like, do you mind even just breaking down, like, from the most simple, basic thing? You said you used to bring in your revenue when you first started, obviously, doing the done for you marketing. What does that look like now? And are there multiple streams? I just think women need so much encouragement into this right now.
Yes. And I'm so glad you asked this question because there's even people who are in business full time often still ask me, what the heck is a media company? So I'm happy to break that down for you. And I think the more you learn about all the possible ways you can make money online, like you said, Heather, it just expands your mindset of what's possible for yourself, right?
100%.
A media company, I think the easiest way to explain it is to is to compare it to a traditional media company. So traditionally, media companies have been newspapers, TV channels and stations, magazines. So if you think of like the New York Times or Forbes magazine or Vogue or anything like that, right? Those are all media companies. Even Disney is a media company. Essentially, it's any company which content is their main product, and that's how they monetize their business. So for us, we're a digital media platform. So what that means is, instead of doing sponsored content on, let's say, a TV segment or a radio ad or a newspaper print ad, instead what we're doing is brands will partner with us and we'll create sponsored content on our podcast or our email newsletter or our website and blog content. So it operates just the same as any other media company, just the distribution content channels look a little bit different. So that's kind of high level what a media company is. But as far as how we personally monetize, this looks different, I think, across all different sorts of media businesses. But for us particularly, right now, most of our revenue comes from brand partnerships and sponsored content, but we also monetize through affiliate income, through selling our own products. So we have a membership that will be launching to the public soon. It's only been available to our founding members so far, but it's like a business savings club for entrepreneurs. Cool. So I kind of describe it like a Costco membership for small businesses. We also monetize through our online products and courses and, just digital tools and templates that we've created to help entrepreneurs succeed. And we also, of course, monetize through other things like speaking engagements, live experiences, and events. So there's a bunch of different revenue arms, but I would say the majority of it comes from brand partnerships at this moment in time.
That's amazing. So, Ellen, I don't even know if you know this or not, but I found you through Ashlyn Carter. And Ashlyn and I went to Stanford University here in Birmingham together. So for any of my Birmingham people that are listening to this, or people in the small business world that have followed Ashlyn for a long time, she is how I found Ellen. And so I think that you guys have maybe shared. Well, maybe, how do y'all know each other? Maybe just tell me that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I've known Ashlyn for a couple years now. She is like seriously one of the sweetest people on the planet Earth. So I'm so glad we share her as a mutual friend. But Ashlyn and I finally met in person last June, actually in New York at our mutual friend, Selena Sue's, mastermind at her apartment. And then we got to share the stage together a couple times since then at different conferences, which is exciting. So yeah, I've been very fortunate that Ashlyn's been, a part of my online business circle. She's truly wonderful.
Yeah, she's fabulous. I just did one of her courses, so I'll make sure to link to Ashlyn's courses as well. But I think that it's just really neat that we can show women that, yes, people in Birmingham, Alabama, and you're from Oregon, no matter where you are in the country, and even like, I'll be the first to admit that Birmingham is probably not the most forward in the digital space, I guess I would say, but it's still possible no matter. Yeah, exactly. So no matter where you are in the world, there are so many ways to make money online. And it's not just being a virtual assistant. It's not just being a quote unquote influencer. There are many, many different avenues. And I love that you said that about the membership. And we'll deep dive into that a little bit later. But so on this season of the show, we've been talking a little bit about relationship health. Well, I say a little bit. That's what this season is about. It's about relationship health in all areas of life, including your work life, which is why I thought you'd be a perfect fit to bring on, Ellen. And you made the statement, of course, you made the statement that I thought was so powerful. You said your network is your net worth. I'm going to say that again. Your network is your net worth. Can you expound on what that means as a business owner?
Absolutely. Well, first, I can't take credit for that saying. Obviously, it's a well-known phrase that's been shared many times, but I really believe in the truth of it, because people are your greatest assets in business, and not just in business, but in life. And I think we can all, see the truth of that in how we've become the people that we are. It's through our connections and through the people that have supported us along the way. And so for me, when I'm thinking about that in the lens of business, you're really looking at, how do I foster long-term relationships with people where you can really serve each other's audience and leverage each other's strengths where you may have weaknesses. And this especially, I think, applies to early entrepreneurs who maybe are starting a side hustle or scaling their businesses, and maybe they don't have an established audience or platform of their own yet. And when you're in that stage, your two options really to get in front of new people who could be your potential customers or followers are to either pay for that reach, right, through paid ads, or to partner and collaborate with other people who already may have more established audiences who share the similar interests or share similar desires or problems with the audience that you want to reach as your target market. So I think collaboration has been so fruitful for our business across all of our different stages in business and in more ways than I can truly count. But if you want to dive into a specific area, I'm happy to go further on that.
Sure. Well, I think that the main thing is that people hear like you're going to collaborate with other businesses, but they're like, I struggle to even just make friends in real life or connect in community. How have you found the best way to connect with other entrepreneurs, especially when you're in the beginning phases? I even feel like I've been blogging and being in the online space now as an entrepreneur for over a decade. And I still feel like when I talk with women that I'm like, we have so much in common. You would be a perfect fit for my audience. I would be a perfect fit for yours. I'd love to team up on something. The common roadblock that I run into is they aren't educated yet enough themselves to know what that would even look like. So how do you almost have like a standard pitch or like DM that you send someone just so they can hear something that's tangible, like to make them get it, if that makes sense? Hey mama, do you feel like you are surviving on chicken nuggets and goldfish and haven't stepped in a gym since college? Or maybe on the other hand, you feel like you're checking every health box and are still hitting a brick wall? Well, I'm here to help you redefine what it means to be healthy from the inside out. I'm a former fitness instructor and everyday mom who is passionate about helping you create a beautiful life you freaking love. So I'm opening the doors to the Healthy by Heather Brown membership to the public and can't wait to walk alongside you and be your cheerleader. When you join, you'll be added to my exclusive Facebook group. You'll receive my Sunday reset training that will help you create promising, sustainable, healthy choices from the inside out, which will in turn lead to a more joy-filled life for busy moms. Live coaching and workout classes with yours truly. You asked and I listened. We'll talk about how to balance your whole health when you have kids and life get busy with school and activities. It includes grocery haul ideas and accountability as we all reset together each Sunday. There will be so much offered that you won't find anywhere else on the internet. Are you ready to take one step out of stress, shame, unhealthy boundaries, and fatigue and add healthy rhythms to the Hot Mess Express? When you're ready, I'll see you on the other side of the link in the show notes. I'm excited and ready to hold your hand and meet face to face.
Absolutely. Great question. I don't typically recommend using some sort of like generic template to reach out to people. I think relationships have to be formed organically. And I will say for my own journey, this is not necessarily a copy paste strategy for everyone listening, but for me personally, because I am a podcaster and Cubicle, the CEO, is our main media platform. We have really leveraged that as a tool for connection. I mean, if you spend, you know this, Heather, as a podcaster, when you sit across from someone for an hour, usually having some sort of conversation, there forms a connection there, right? That you really can't replicate in a lot of other instances. And it's a way for you to form that initial connection and then let it blossom into something further. And also it's a way to lead with generous action, which is my number one tip for anyone listening. Whenever you're thinking about collaboration, you want to come from the perspective of someone who is curious, who doesn't have an agenda, and who is deeply wanting to serve, like wanting to show up in a way that provides value to the other person first before asking for anything in return. So I think one of the best ways to do this, honestly, is when you reach out to someone, right? Everybody wants more visibility. I think that's like the one thing that is pretty common across anyone who's in business. So I think one of the easiest things you can do, honestly, whether you choose to make Instagram or TikTok or a podcast or whatever is your platform, invite people to come on your platform first, rather than asking for anything of them. Ask them, hey, would you like to come on? I would love to introduce you and the work that you're doing to my people. And using that as that initial connection tool to meet someone, to introduce yourselves, and then getting so curious and just asking them a ton of questions about what they're excited about in this season of life right now. What are they working on? What are they needing? Are there any connections that they're looking for that you can maybe pull from your network? One of the most underrated ways to provide value to people is actually to connect two strangers who you personally may know both of them, but if you connect those two individuals to one another and they don't know each other, and you form some sort of valuable connection for them, whether they become peers or clients of each other or just friends, that will make a lasting impression in both of their minds, because you are their one common originator, right? So when you're starting out and you don't have a lot to offer, maybe you don't have a big audience size, or maybe you don't have a lot of experience that you can offer, think of who in your network you can connect to one another, because you will be surprised by how much value that brings to someone's life.
Oh, that's such a good key takeaway. And it's so simple. I think that sometimes we want to overcomplicate things, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's also really interesting how, you also always have to think about what makes you passionate about what you're doing. So I even think about, like, for women that are like, well, I'm doing an MLM and I don't know how to grow that. What does that look like? A lot of times when you do just start connecting with other women that are passionate about those same things, or they're doing it for the same reason you are, because you're both moms doing this side hustle to bring value to your family, you're going to want to help each other out. It's just a matter of, like you said, asking a lot of questions, because people love to talk about themselves. So it's like a perfect setup.
Yes.
Okay. So at the time of this recording, spring of 2023, there's a lot of talk of economic downturn, scary times, people are losing jobs, and lots of women want to start to scale that side hustle or their MLM, and dream of being a CEO, or rising ranks, or whatever it is that they're doing. What advice do you give them? And almost maybe even like, are you doing anything in your business personally to help get ready to weather that storm, or to brace to be ready for it and prepping?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very nuanced question in terms of my response, because I think when you're talking about downturns in the economy, they're definitely felt across all levels. Like, I won't deny that. And I think especially for people's everyday lives, especially with things like inflation, like that really does impact people on a very deep level. So I'm not discounting any of that. But when you're looking at it from a pure marketing or sales perspective, I think sometimes we as small business owners almost get too caught up in the macroeconomics. Like we hear all these scary, headlines like inflation is soaring, or like, the Fed's hiked the rate again, or like the economy is crashing, whatever these things are. We can often let that fear influence us into holding back from sharing our gifts or our solutions or whatever it is, and go, okay, we gotta back up because, the economy's turned to crap right now. But in reality, when you actually study the data, most of the time when there's these big things happening in the economy, the companies that are most directly affected by that are actually really large businesses, which is why you see things like huge layoffs in the tech sector or, whatnot. In reality, your everyday mom and pop shop or your small business, yes, you're impacted by those bigger trends, but I don't think it's at the level that most people actually perceive it to be. And really, when they see the impact is when they actually create their own self-imposed challenges of holding back from selling at all, because they're like, oh, I can't do this because of, external circumstances. When in reality, we've seen time and time again through every recession in history that there are still going to be buyers out there in every market, right? Does it change? Sure. But there's always going to be people who are buying and people who are selling in every single market. And so you just kind of have to lean into as things outside of your control shift, how can you show up in a way? How can you adapt your solutions, or how can you really meet people where they're at and understand, okay, right now, how can I best serve you? And that doesn't mean stop selling. That just means thinking about how you're going to adapt to those changes. So for us, honestly, we're not really making any big leaps or changes in this current economic downturn. I think we're really just understanding what our customer needs. They are looking to us for that financial transparency. They're looking to us for quality free content that we consistently provide through our podcast and our free weekly newsletter. And, most of our monetization happens not in that direct to consumer aspect, but with our brand partners. So with our brand partners, we're looking at it from the lens of, hey, what are you currently spending to acquire customers? And by partnering with us, how can we actually give you a better return on your investment by putting you in front of a more niche audience? So again, it's really just about staying curious and not letting external factors cloud your judgment and making decisions based on fear.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. I will say that I, as a content creator, have noticed just from doing this from, forever, essentially, it feels like at this point, I think 2010. But one thing that I have noticed is that there definitely are highs and lows. Like I know that brands that I partnered with in the past, they've already told me like, we're cutting budget for 2023. So, like we used to do this large partnership with you and now we have to scale it back. Or I've even had people be like, we're booking for this gift guide, and they book, like 3 months in advance. And then we come up to it and they're like, I'm so sorry, but my marketing budget got pulled for Q2. And so it's like, those are the type things that I feel like even us on a micro level are feeling.
100%.
And so I think that there is wisdom and even just saying like, how can I save in my business regardless? And how can I make up for those differences in revenue? And one thing that I feel like I've noticed, and I'd be curious to hear your take on this too, is I'm realizing unfortunately, I've had a large portion of my eggs in the basket of advertising coming in, obviously as a media platform. And I think that I need to even it out more so where it's not 80% was, advertisers and 15% was my own products and or affiliate. And so it's just been a really good reminder for me of oh, right, this is why you have to diversify.
100%. And I will say it's interesting because I've sat in both seats. And what I mean by that is prior to really the last 6 to 9 months, we were mostly an education company. So I would say 80 to 90% of our revenue was direct to consumer. Now, granted, because we're a business education company, our consumers, and I say that in quotes, are still business owners. So I mean, the lines are blurry on whether that would still be considered business to business, B2B, or B2C, business to consumer. But regardless, most of our revenue was coming from direct people paying for our digital products or our courses or events versus now it's flip-flopped. And the majority, like I said, of our revenue comes from advertisers or brand partners. And then only a small percentage right now, at least, is coming from direct people buying our products themselves. But to your point, I think having a more balanced split of where the money is coming from does help stabilize in times of highs and lows in different areas. Sure. So I like your approach there. And I think that there isn't necessarily a right or wrong, a better or worse way to manage your business as far as where the revenue comes from. But I do think no matter what, you have to stay adaptable to what is going to be the needs of whoever it is or that you're serving in that current climate, and just staying open to hearing feedback and being willing to try new things, even if you're not sure if they'll be successful.
Yes. And also just not being afraid to pivot too. I feel that's one thing that I feel like the name of the game for the past year and a half for me has been to pivot as I'm continually refining and all these things. And so we've actually started offering, again, I used to do this way back in the day, but part of the pivoting has been now we're offering social media consulting for different brands locally here in Birmingham, but also to bloggers and all these things. And so it's really cool because it's forcing me to sharpen my tools on the left side of my brain, whereas I'd been so creative brain dominant for a while. So it's actually been a cool weathering process. Not easy. Pruning season's never easy, but it's good too.
I love that you're bringing back some of these skill sets that have maybe been dormant for a while because you've been focusing on something else. But to your point, I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is in many ways, people see entrepreneurship as risky, and it is. You are taking a risk on yourself, but in some ways it's actually more stable in the sense that, when you're in a traditional job, you are hired for a specific role. And if there are external circumstances that make that role redundant or no longer needed, there's really not much that can be done. You're let go, right? But when you're an entrepreneur, if the solutions or the products and services you're putting out there in the market aren't being taken well at a moment, you can always, like you said, adjust and shift, and you can try different things. And that ability, that creative and freedom to explore different options really does actually provide almost a greater sense of stability in certain circumstances.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. Now I feel like often when we say networking or building connection, we immediately think of sliding in someone's DMs like, hey girl, like I'm trying this new hair product. You should try it. So, I mean, raise your hand if you've been victim to that one girl from high school that pops up out of nowhere. So what would you say that, because you interview so many people, what would you say to women that do MLMs or side hustles and they're like, what is the key here to leveling up? Like, is there anything when you've been doing case studies on your podcast that you find over and over and over again, I find that women are failing at X and you guys should know this?
I mean, I think it really comes down to actually understanding what it is that you're selling. And this is not specific to industry, right? But it's actually just the truth of how business works. Most people, I think the number one mistake people make in sales actually is to assume things about the people that they're selling to. So the moment you show up in someone's DMs and you say, hey, I have this really great product, I think you'd love it, you're automatically making so many assumptions about them. And first of all, they never gave you consent to even sell to them. That's another thing, is if you can practice consent-based marketing, which is again, all rooted in staying curious and showing up and not assuming someone wants something, needs something, has an interest in something, but instead asking them questions about themselves, actually getting to know someone. And then based on what they choose to reveal to you, maybe you do have a solution in mind, a good product fit that would be helpful for them, but not assuming and saying, hey, actually, based on what you told me, I think this product would be great for you. Instead, asking them a question like, hey, thank you so much for sharing those things with me. Based on what you shared with me, I actually think I have a solution that could be helpful to you. Would you like me to share more information about it? Asking is so important. That consent is so important. And realizing that your role as a salesperson is not to be a persuader or to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do. Whenever people say, oh, sales feels icky, it's always because they're making assumptions or they're trying to push someone into a position to make a decision that they don't actually want to make or are not ready to make. When instead you remove yourself from having to play that role, you can instead view yourself as a guide or as a facilitator. And when you shift your mindset to instead say, my goal is not to make this person say yes. My goal is simply to help them make a decision, period. Whether that decision is yes or no, it's a win for me either way, because I'm helping them move forward with clarity. And if you change your position to that, sales becomes fun, because it really isn't about convincing someone to do something they don't want to do. It's asking them a lot of questions and providing them the information they need to make a confident decision one way or the other.
Yes. Preach. Amen and amen. So, Ellen, you mentioned earlier, obviously, that you're getting married and you also have this thriving business. So as women, we tend, I feel like, to just pile on and on and on. And especially as an entrepreneur, a lot of times it feels like, well, the job never ends. Mm-hmm. So are there any practices or daily habits or anything that you've set in place to help you to avoid burnout, essentially?
Yeah, I think it's viewing your schedule not just through the lens of time availability, but energy availability. This is a big thing. So oftentimes we kind of look at, okay, we have X amount of hours free in this day, so what can we do to fill the time, right? But really different tasks require different energy from you. And so you may have the capacity for, 5 or 10 things if they're all quite, simple, very automatic, there's not a whole lot of thinking involved. You could probably get a lot done in that one day, but then there may be a day where one simple task actually takes up all of your energy. And even though it may not fill all your time, you feel like your tank has been depleted by that and you need to refresh or renew before you can start again. And so I think looking at it from the perspective of energy and time, not just time. Another thing that is helpful is to really think through priorities. And one thing that really helped me was this book called Procrastinate on Purpose. And it's all about looking at your tasks, not just through the lens of what is important and what is urgent, but also what is significant. Meaning something could be urgent, like, oh, this is due tomorrow. But if you do it, it may not actually have any long-term significance in your life. Like doing this today doesn't necessarily help you tomorrow or the next week or the next year. And so you kind of have to give yourself permission to look at things on your list and be like, is this important only because it's urgent, or is it important because it's actually significant? And if it's only important because it's urgent, you might want to also ask yourself, is this someone else's urgency or is this my own urgency? And do I really need to be doing this, or am I only doing this out of obligation? And so being able to eliminate things, that's actually like your power move, is being able to eliminate things off of your schedule. So those are a few of the tips that I would consider implementing when looking at how do you manage that capacity so you're not hitting burnout.
Yeah. And I think that applies to all of you that are listening to this, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case may be. I think those are really good practical takeaways to utilize. And you actually reminded me of the book, which I want to read. It's on my list, but I think it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I think, have you read it?
No, but
okay.
I'm already obsessed just based on the title, because I've written so many times. Journaling, by the way, is something I should have mentioned. That's my way to unwind. Journaling and walking, like those are my two favorite things to kind of like relieve stress. But I have written before, like, I do not want to live a hurried life. Like, I want to slow down. And so I'm obsessed. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
I will add that to my order list.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll link both of those for sure. And have you taken the Enneagram personality test by chance?
Yes. I love the Enneagram. I'm a 3-wing too.
Of course you are. There's so many entrepreneurs that are 3s. It's wild. I'm also a 3-wing too. So there you go. But I really struggle to slow down. That is one of my biggest like pain points, I would say. And I think it's one of my biggest strengths, also one of my biggest weaknesses. So like you said, trying to learn to not hurry is hard for me, but it is something that I seek because I see the value in it. So I am actively working on that day in and day out.
I love that. That's such a good rec. And one more thing that I thought of, this is actually top of mind for me because I just recorded a whole podcast on it right before we hopped on here. I recently attended a wellness retreat in Laguna Beach, and this was the first time I'd invested in a personal wellness retreat just for my well-being, not for, business furtherment or development. And one of my favorite lessons that I learned during that retreat is when you feel stuck or you're like really energetically drained or whatever it may be, and you just kind of need a refresh. Three ways to do that is through breath, movement, and sound. And it's just such an easy thing to remember. Like maybe if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're like, I have just had it, like with like 2-year limits today with everybody needing something from you. And you're like, I just cannot do this for one more second. Maybe just take a step back and think, okay, what is one way I can incorporate right now, either sound, breath, or movement, and just pick one of those things. Maybe it's sound. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to turn on my favorite song, and maybe it's sound and movement, right? Like I'm going to turn on my favorite song. I'm going to dance it out for 2 minutes because it really does change things, internally and like break up that like static flow. So I think that's another like practical thing that women can implement in their lives when they need it.
I love that so much. One thing that we've been talking about a lot at My Life Well Loved and Healthy with Heather Brown, all the things, is mind, body, spirit connection and how powerful they are. And how that's one thing I will say that it's like a tool in my tool belt. It's called my Sunday reset. And I try to plan out things that week that refuel my mind, my body, and my spirit. And for me, it has to always start with Sunday is bathtub night for me. I force myself to soak my muscles in an Epsom salt bath, and walk, because like you're saying, walking is so powerful for clearing out just tangled up thoughts that you don't even know are in there. Like it's so wild how good it is for you. So I love that. I'm like, I'm stealing that and repeating it everywhere. Breath, movement, sound. So good.
Yes. Well, credit to my friend Carmen Oling of Permission Slip Retreat. She was the one who taught me that.
Oh, I love that. Okay. That's so cool. Okay. Before we hop off this call, I'd be in trouble with the people who wanted to hear you on the show if I didn't pick your brain on this. So how do you maintain a healthy relationship with money as a CEO?
Well, it's an ongoing process. I'll tell you that.
Amen.
There's a lot of money stories and deeply rooted, fears and things to, I think, for all of us to unlearn. And they may look different for each of us, depending on how you grew up. For me, it's this need to like hang on to money almost in like a hoarding mentality. Like I've always been a really good saver and a pretty good investor, but I think sometimes to the extreme where it's like I want to save just because it provides some sort of false security when I'm like, oh, if my balance grows and grows and grows, it just makes me feel more secure. When in reality, that's not the purpose that money actually is supposed to serve in your life, right? Money is really a tool to help enrich your life by giving you more options and choices, so that you can live the life that you want to live. But in saving it just endlessly doesn't actually do that. So I think for me, what's really helped is actually increasing my financial IQ. So actually spending time and money in investing in learning from people who are more well-versed in this than I am, reading a lot of books, hiring advisors, attending events and taking courses, and just really trying to expand my mindset of what is possible. Because when you really observe the wealthiest people in the world, some of their habits, I think, would actually be quite surprising to the everyday person who maybe didn't grow up with money. But one of the things I love most that I've observed in really wealthy people is that they are really, really good at legacy mindset. Like they don't think in like short-term waves, where it's so easy to get, fearful in the ups and downs of like day to day. They really think in such long-term windows, and they're very patient. And so I think, of course, it's not true for every single rich person, but just like in general, this is like an observation I've made. And of course, there's so many factors that play into it, but I think that the more you can raise your own financial IQ and normalize conversations around money too, with trusted people in your life, the better you'll be able to, navigate that journey as a CEO or just as a person.
And I love that also from like the Christian lens. I love it from the motherhood lens. And I love it obviously from the money lens, because legacy mindset is so much about what we want to do. And we want to like impact generations. Like I always talk with moms, especially in the health space, about how like you have to find your why, not only is related to like, yes, go to the gym because it helps you, like if you want to lose weight or if you want it for the mental health aspect or whatever it is, but truly like find your why, because that's going to make you show up. And if like for me, my why is my kids. Like I want my kids, like it to be natural to want to be active because it's going to help their mental health, this, that, and the other. Like there's just legacy mindset works in so many different ways. That's awesome. That's such a good power word. I'm like, oh, I'm also stealing that one. That's so good.
Please do. And that's so inspiring. I love that you encourage your kids in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So legacy, is there anything that you are like, if you don't follow this person on Instagram around this would be a great follow, or like a great book, or any just like one nugget to take away from that for them?
Oh my God, there's so many.
You're like, I don't know where to start.
So many. Yeah, I really don't know where to start. One podcast that has been really inspiring me lately is The Crazy Ones. It's a morning brew podcast, and they really, they riff on all sorts of things. They'll do guest interviews, but they also really dive deep into like the founder journey. And so if you are more business minded and that is an interest of yours, I just think it's helped expand my thinking. So I have been really enjoying that content.
Awesome. I'll link out in the show notes too. So this is my final question, which you might be like, Heather, I've already answered that, but you might have a different answer. So we'll see. Final question is, what are some ways that you consciously reset and recharge in your life right now? And this can be anything that makes you feel like you.
Honestly, lately I've been really enjoying a quick little getaways. So just disrupting your everyday environment. Sometimes you can feel really stagnant when routines are amazing, I think, for all of us, but sometimes you can get stuck in your routines. And so I love just, even if it's driving like 30 minutes to the town next to us and just sitting by the river in the middle of the day and drinking a coffee, right? Like just switching up the environment really, really helps. I have found for resetting my mind and my spirit.
Okay. And I love this. And I also saw, I can't remember where you wrote this, but I saw this somewhere where you said that you make it your mission to hope, but that stands for help one person every day. And you said this powerful acronym reminds you that you can focus on offering a solution through our business to make someone else's life better and intentionally connect with a new person each day. And that will help you always be grateful. And this really was cool for me to hear. I've heard it said before, but not phrased this way. And you said neuroscience proves that it's impossible to be in a state of gratitude and feel negativity at the same time. And so I think about when you do change up your state, like you were just saying, like you're so grateful to be in a new place and noticing the river and different things that you're like, when you're at home, you're used to seeing, like I'm used to seeing the beautiful tree covered hills, but someone that's not from Birmingham is gonna be like, wow, that is such a breathtaking sight. So I love that practice of gratitude too, that you have talked about before.
100%. You're so right. And I love the way that you phrase that. It's so easy to tune things out that have just become your norm. And it's hard to get yourself to appreciate the little things when you have become accustomed to them. But if you switch up your environment, it is just a pattern interrupt that forces your brain to notice things more carefully. And that constant act of gratitude. I'm so glad. I don't even know where you dug up that post because I could tell it was like an old post. So I just want to say kudos to you, Heather, as a host for doing your research. I'm impressed.
Yeah, girl. Well, I'm like, kudos to you for having such brilliant thoughts for me to dig up. So, Ellen, tell them where they can find you online one more time, and then I will let you go, my dear.
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple things. First, if you love podcasts, which I imagine you do if you're listening to this, I would love for you to come hang out with us on our podcast. Search Cubicle to CEO wherever you're listening, and we drop new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. Also, I know Heather and I talked about the Enneagram and understanding who you are and your personality type. So if you're a nerd like me and just love discovering more things about yourself, I'd love for you to take our quiz. It's called What's Your CEO Style? It's a 10 multiple choice question quiz. You can get through it in under 2 minutes. And it's going to tell you your unique genius and strengths to lean into. And whether you're in business or not, I think understanding how you move through the world and how you connect with people in a way that aligns with your strengths is going to help you magnificently. So if you want to take the quiz and discover which of the 4 CEO styles you are, you can go to ellenyin.com/quiz. And then other than that, shoot me a DM on Instagram at Miss Ellen Yin. Tell me what you took away from this conversation with me and Heather, and I'd love to chat more.
Yes, absolutely. And we would love for you, if you will, screenshot this, like you said, share it on Instagram stories, tag us both, and tell us maybe something that you're grateful for today, so that we can keep that negativity out. And it was such a pleasure to talk with Ellen today. I feel like she brought us so much valuable information, whether you are a mom, whether you work, just about really cultivating relationships in a healthy way with money, with your coworkers, or if you're an entrepreneur, maybe with your husband or the people that support you in it. So I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thanks again for joining me.